Welcome back, everybody. It's time for Customers Who Click. I've got another amazing episode lined up for you today, and we're going to be hearing from the Customer Acquisition Manager at Virgin Pure. As I'm sure you're aware, Virgin is one of the biggest brand names out there, so it's going to be really interesting to hear about how a business can leverage that brand reputation for growth. As a reminder, do head over to the Customers Who Click website where you can get access to over 50 actionable tips to help your business today, as well as the summaries and audio of the other 79 episodes of the podcast. Let's hear from Chris Hann now. Hi, Chris. Thanks for joining me today. Do you mind just quickly introducing yourself? Give us a very quick kind of background and how you've got to where you are at Virgin Pure.
Yeah, so my name's Chris. I work in marketing. I'm the Customer Acquisition Manager at Virgin Pure. Before then, I've worked across a range of B2B, B2C businesses in sort of the insurance space, other e-commerce businesses, AI for banks and stuff like that. I joined Virgin Pure about 6 months ago now, wanting to sort of really supercharge their growth in the digital space. And that's what I'm sort of here to talk about today. Cool,
sounds good. Do you want to just very quickly, elevator pitch, what is Virgin Pure? Just for those who might not know.
So Virgin Pure is a home water system that plugs into your mains. It then filters and purifies the water with a sort of market-leading filtration system and UV purification system. And then you can get it chilled, boiling. There's sort of a range of 50 temperatures you can set it at. And sort of it's an all-in-one hydration solution for the home for people who are fed up at home to refill their other brand filters and stick them in the fridge for it to cool, or people who are sick of spending thousands of pounds a year on bottled water and clogging up the ocean with more plastic.
Yeah, cool. Sounds good. Yeah, I think there's another one that kind of sounds similar, but it's an actual tap. I think it starts with an O, but yeah, I can't remember the name.
Yeah, it's Cooker.
Oh, yeah, I mean, that's it.
They'll set you back. The base one, which is I think just the whole was about 1,500. If you want all the bells and whistles, you're talking upwards of 4 or 5 grand. Our system will, at the moment, sort of we've got a bit of a special offer on, so it'll set you back about 280 quid, which you can split over 12 months interest free. And then you just need to replace the filter every 6 months and the UV lamp every year. So it's sort of better than your Brita, where you've got to replace it every month, and heavy users probably even a bit more regular than that.
Yeah, cool. So let's get stuck in. So obviously you said you've been brought in to kind of supercharge the growth. So it's a great place to start, really. What do you think has been the kind of biggest contributor to growth recently?
It's data. Pretty much being able to successfully use data to start getting all of our paid and earned channels aligned and really working at their hardest, while also ensuring on-site customer experience as best it can be from the first engagement to completed sale. And then also beyond that as well. It's not an easy process. It takes a ton of data, and then you need to sift through it, analyze it to spot trends and little nuggets of information hidden away within it, and then use that to sort of inform changes you make or where to focus your budget. And it's not just the data you collect through first-party systems such as Google Analytics, Facebook, Google Ads. It's also about weaving in sort of more external data to understand the impact of other events, such as when paydays are, what the weather's been on your good days, when are the people are on holidays, when the schools opened and closed, what's the construction season is a big one for us. You need to be able to collate and merge all of this data together and then understand how to sort of effectively use what you learn to make small changes that can have a big impact, generate sales, and also keep your costs down. Because in my opinion, it's not just about throwing money at every digital channel to see what sticks. You've got to understand what you need to throw the money at to get the best results. And there's no guarantee it'll work, but having insights that you can glean from all this data is what being smart's all about. Is making sure that you have the best chance of succeeding. And that's what's really helped us to grow is, when I started pulling all the data together and really started to look at how all of our channels are operating, rebuilt our paid search from the ground up, rebuilt our shopping and how that operates, rebuilt how we sort of operate in the organic space as well. So completely refreshed our blog area. It's an ongoing process, and that's the thing, it's never finished. You never just finished analysing the data, because every day more data is coming in.
Yeah. So just going back to some of that seasonality data. So are you using that to then kind of plan and make changes and tweaks to ads as they come up? Or are you kind of using it to say, we can see we had this spike a couple of weeks ago, or maybe a big drop, and then looking back to understand what actually happened during that period and how that might have affected things?
Yeah, most definitely. It's both. It's looking, okay, we had a good week. For example, we had a good week in June. Why was that week a standout week when we hadn't really done much to impact? We hadn't chucked any more money at anything. We hadn't introduced any more channels. Why was something? And then you overlay the temperature and sunlight, and it was the sort of period where it was the hottest and sunniest of the year, and you see the big spike, and your conversion rates improve. So you look at, okay, what you've got to do is for next year, because obviously we're turning into the dark, cold, wet days of autumn and winter.
Yeah.
So that is a bit useless at the moment. But for next year, you go, okay, we build out our programmatic advertising campaigns to say, okay, look at the forecast. When you know it's going to be 30 plus day and it's going to be clear blue skies, pump the money into the channels such as Facebook and paid search around sort of the specific groups that we know converted during that time. It's all about, it's the short term and the long term. So some of the stuff, so payday is short term. We always know that due to the price point of our solution, payday is a good day or a good week, really, because not everyone gets paid on the same day. So we build out campaigns to sort of ramp up our emails, ramp up around that time. And that's obviously every month. So that's more than the short term. So the long term is looking at the seasonality. Also, most people have construction done during the summer months. So they're sort of planning sort of around the winter, autumn months and getting planned. So you kind of get in front of them then to get the brand awareness started.
Yeah. Just on the payday, do you see, is there a difference in uptake between people just purchasing it or people spreading the cost over 12 months around payday?
Actually, when it comes to that, I think payday mainly just impacts people purchasing it. Most people do spread the cost. I mean, even myself personally, whenever I buy anything, if there's the option to spread the cost interest free, generally I'll do it, because then if something does crop up and I'm suddenly, I've got an unexpected vet bill or something like that, it's not just like, oh no, I've just spent X amount on this new product in one lump sum. I know I spread it out the cost, so I'm sort of making myself more proof against an unexpected bill. So I think that has less. It's more just people they've got paid and they're more in the mind to spend that money. And you see it across. I mean, I've worked in other e-commerce places, exactly the same. It's always around that sort of the last week of the month and first week of the next month are always sort of your best times, because that's when people are a bit flush with cash and they're more willing to spend on the bits they've been saving and bookmarking during the previous month.
Yeah, I suppose people build up a list of things. I suppose probably particularly with something like this, I moved into a new house in June and I'm planning on redoing the kitchen. And as part of that, I'm also creating a list of all the other little bits that might need to go alongside it. So probably something like Virgin Pure. But actually now I'm thinking, well, if I'm going to have to rip up the kitchen, probably don't want to get Virgin Pure now. But if I'm redoing the kitchen, how can I maybe plan to integrate it better?
Yeah. And also, I mean, on that, this question that's come back to that is we do get a lot of people who decide to purchase, and you can defer your install date. Because that's the thing, is when you purchase it, included in the price is a professional installation. And so when you're contacted by the team, and you can sort of say, put a note on my file, I've got my kitchen being built in June, can you contact me in July? And we'll put a note, and then sort of we can go on then, and people know they've got it in the bank. It's they're obviously paying the installments for it, but then they can sit on it and they know they've got it coming. It's not something they might then forget. And also some people do sort of build it in, okay, you can deliver it, and we can sort of understand how to fit it in to our kitchen plan. So yeah, it's funny, sort of, you can never just plan and say this is how everyone's going to do it. You come across so many individual circumstances, and you just got to be sort of prepared for it, really.
Yeah, I think that flexibility is good. So I actually had a kind of similar experience with, I'm pretty sure it was Virgin Media when I got my broadband here, because obviously before I moved, I got in touch to say, well, I'm going to be moving into this place. I need to order my broadband so that I've got it as quickly as possible. And I think initially the online experience just said, you can just order it and we'll send it out to you within the next, or you'll receive it on this date, I think. And it wasn't a choice. It was just, it's going to be this date. And that was about 2 days before I moved in. So I was like, well, I can't have a package delivered to the house that I haven't moved into yet. So I phoned them up, and then the guy was like, yeah, we can do it whenever. So we can either place that for you on the Saturday, or if you just order it next week, you'll be able to do it. So that flexibility then made sure I actually completed the purchase. And that was done through chat during that checkout process as well. I don't think I had to actually follow up at all.
Yeah, I think so with our process, we have someone who calls you once you place the purchase, or within 24 hours or so, and that's when you can have the conversation. But I said we've got live chat on the website, which is something we've sort of integrated and pushed out more recently, not just for customers, but obviously as part of the whole journey through the website. I think it's a massive digital touch point, and it's live as well. It's not a chat bot, which is one of my biggest bugbears when dealing with any business online is, there's live chat. I get to speak to someone. I can put my question that hasn't been directly answered, and no, wait, it's just send us an email and we'll get back to you. It sort of kind of slightly puts me against the brand from a start point. And I know I've gone away from businesses and just I can't be bothered. I had a specific question. I want it answered now. I'm not going to send an email and wait, and then I've just not made the purchase in the end. I think we've tried to gear ours very much towards there's someone there, and they're there outside of work hours. So, again, coming on to you look at it at 6 p.m. at night, we've got someone live that you can speak to. I think ours go up until 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah, I would have thought this isn't the sort of purchase you can quickly do at your desk while in between meetings or something. And especially, at the price point, potentially, it's the sort of thing you're going to do a bit of research on, save it for later, and then when you get home, complete that purchase. And if you want to speak to someone, or if you think you might need to speak to someone, it's another reason for you to wait to make the purchase and do it outside work hours. So if you've got that live chat support, then that's fantastic. I actually, I was buying a new tennis racket recently, went to a bunch of websites. Apparently the Head website has a find your racket thing, which unfortunately didn't work. I was recommended the website. The guy told me, use that tool to find the racket and then basically Google that racket alternatives. And then you can find, that'll tell you what racket you should use, and you can find alternatives. But unfortunately it didn't work. So I started doing other research on other sites, and I came across one that specifically had WhatsApp on the in their header. So contact us by WhatsApp, speak to an expert. I was like, this is great. I can either exchange a few messages with someone on WhatsApp, or maybe just jump on a call, and they can explain what sort of racket I should buy. But they ignored it. Didn't get a message back. Which really shocked me, because I also wonder how many other people contact them because they want advice on how to actually select a racket, and this company's just ignoring them. Yeah,
and now the thing is that you probably you yourself will have a negative attitude, and the thing is that when you have a good experience, you generally don't, unless it was something fantastic, you generally don't tell people the business I spoke to did what I expect. If you get the service you expect, you don't usually talk.
Exactly, it's what you expect, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, you just kind of naturally said it.
Yeah. But then if you have a negative experience, people love to harp on about negative. I mean, I do it as well. If I have a negative experience, I'll bend anyone's ear back about it that I can. And it's the sort of reverse word of mouth thing, which is why you've got to go above and beyond in some ways to try and get the positive word of mouth, which is a big thing for us, is like looking at the data, we get a huge amount of through word of mouth, and our friend referral scheme as well. We get 6-7 people a day are purchasing through a friend referral link, which is when I've worked in other e-commerce businesses, people have got a product, the product's done what they've expected, and they generally, when we've done polls and stuff, very few people have come said from friend recommendations, because I think you've got to provide something people weren't expecting for that to work. And I think that's a good thing about our product is we've got so many little bits and pieces that it does. Is people are like, okay, it filters the water, and then they get in like, oh wow, the chilled water I can set to whatever temperature. The boiling water comes out, so I can just fill my pan with boiling water, and good to go. It's perfect for teas, and I can set it so you can set the temperature for the hot differently for tea or coffee, or if you've got some specialist leaf that doesn't need boiling water, it needs that like close to boiling to get the right temperature. I mean, I've been learning all about that. Like, I'm not a tea or coffee drinker, so in my mind, it was just boil kettle, pour on tea bag, hand over to someone. But I mean, if you love your tea and you get the special leaves, it's not as simple as that. Like, there's some people like you've got to boil it and leave it for X amount of time to get to the right temperature to pour on to get the right flavour. And I'm just like, that sounds like a lot of effort. And now people are like, well, I can just press a button.
And if all you've got is a kettle, and you've got you boil it, and then you're thinking, right, I've got to wait 30 seconds for it to be the right temperature to use.
Yeah,
maybe a minute. Whereas having a button to do it, much easier. Obviously, you've only been there 6 months, but it'll be really interesting to see whether you see that kind of similar trend in the cold months as you did with that week in June, and whether when it's getting really cold, people will be like, I don't want to have to boil the kettle every couple of hours for a cup of tea. I just want to go downstairs, press that button, and it's done.
Yeah, massively. It's something I'm actually very much looking forward to sort of seeing the data when it comes in. And as well, it's sort of already we think about informing our creative decisions around it. So during the hot months, obviously, you don't want a load of ads that are going on about with people in jumpers making hot chocolate and hot teas and coffees, because it's not really where your mindset is. So you kind of that data we talked about before also informs your creative decision. So those programmatic hot ads you're going to build in with people cooling themselves off after doing something outside, while when it's cold, as it is starting to get now, you're hot, people sitting down with the mugs of coffee and stuff like that. So I'm very intrigued to see if that trend, like when there's a cold snap and you're more likely to want a few more hot coffees to keep you warm, and we target people with advertising saying, here's something, you press a button and you get your pretty much unlimited hot coffee without having to refill a kettle, without having to worry about scale or anything like that. Will it have the impact I hope it will have?
Yeah, exactly. You mentioned when we spoke before that you focused a bit on CRO as well. So how do you kind of combine CRO with the performance marketing channels to help the business grow?
So with all of that, it's about decreasing the friction within the customer journey and making the path to conversion the most appealing it can be, and then sort of utilizing CRO to boost the performance of each digital channel. So sort of simple things are custom landing pages that aren't just user friendly but are relevant to the search ads or paid social ad copy or the targeting group, and then also sort of flipping that around a little bit and sort of using the sort of CRO tools to understand how people interact with the site. That then informs our ad copy and design in the first instance, so that when people click on our ads, we know there's people with genuine interest in the product. They're sort of fully understanding what we're offering. Because before I joined, sort of there was budget being wasted on terms such as ice maker and coffee machine. Because if you see our products in a shopping ad, it's a product, and shopping ad has Google shopping ads have very limited text on it. So it does look like an ice maker, and sort of especially if you're looking on mobile, it's quite a small picture. You've Googled ice maker and you see the Virgin Pure home water system, you're like, probably has an ice maker attached. So it's really drilling down the performance marketing channels and using that data, sort of understanding how people interact in the site. Like they're using site search to search for like ice making, or does this make ice and stuff like that in the FAQs. So and improving the sort of conversion rate on the website has a massive benefits for paid search in terms of sort of lowering CPCs and ensuring we spend the budget more efficiently. I mean, we've actually pretty much held our budget steady and decreased in some channels, but we're getting more clicks and conversions than we were previously because we focused heavily on before I joined, pretty much everything was being driven to the homepage, and I went through sort of 2 months of building out variations, like many custom landing pages, pushing some terms to existing blogs so that you're really answering the person's question. I think that's really what CRO comes down to. Optimizing your conversion rate is when someone is looking for something, they can find it as quickly as possible. There's nothing worse than searching for something, hitting a website, and your answer isn't directly there. Now you've got to do extra work. And as we've noticed in our bounce rates decreasing significantly for non-brand terms, time on site increasing in line with them going on more pages through the journey. So it's had an overall beneficial effect of just looking at like that one simple thing of just driving people to landing pages to answer the questions. And it's not a particularly risky or costly tactic. I mean, there are businesses out there that, they have their conversion rate, whatever percent it is, and to increase sales, they've just pumped more traffic into the top of the funnel rather than looking at how they can get the most out of the traffic they're currently getting, which again comes back to having the right tools on your website to see how people are interacting with the page, and then driving them to the right places so that the traffic you're already generating starts converting. In my mind, you have to get your CRO spot on before, because that's how you earn the right to really ramp up your budget, is getting your conversion rate higher.
Yeah, exactly. And I see this not just with CRO, but also with email marketing as well, with open rates and things. People seem to get this benchmark figure in their heads, and they're thinking this is good, so all we've got to do is get more people to it. So if their conversion rate is 5%, they're thinking, great, 5%. If it starts to dip below 5, we've got an issue. We need to look into it. But otherwise, if it's around 5 or higher, we're good. So they just start to pump more money into it and more traffic. And same with open rates. For some reason, I've worked with businesses where, they will expect an open rate of 15% on a campaign. If it's any lower, then it's, what went wrong? This is a disaster. We should have hit 15%. Anything over 15% is just fine, whatever. There's no real thought process that goes into, cool, 15% is good, or 5% conversion rate is good. How do we make sure this is higher? What would it mean to the business if we got to a 7% conversion rate? And that's quite a huge decrease in cost, really, on that budget. Or it's quite a significant improvement in the number of leads or conversions you're going to get through that same amount of budget.
Yeah, and also there's depreciation returns. The more you increase your budget, if you have a 5% conversion rate and you start increasing your budget, it's unlikely your conversion rate will stick at 5%. You'll be very lucky, because the more you start pumping to the top, the more you're going to start pulling in the wrong people who may have less sales intent, or they might be in the wrong category, or if you haven't done your CRO correctly, they've clicked because they're searching for something completely different, and you've broadened yourself so much that the Facebook and Google are sort of going into broader and broader sort of target sectors, and your conversion rate's going to dip. So I think you need to have a very, very strong conversion rate at a good CPA before you can really start pumping money in. And then when you start, you've got to do it incremental. You do X amount in this channel, run it for a month or two. What's the data look like? You can't just start going straight for it and really pumping loads of money in, because you'll start spending thousands upon thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, and something will go wrong, something will break, and then suddenly you have to either rein it really back in, or you kind of just keep spending all this money while trying to fix it while spending money and leaking budget. Which I've seen, before. You hear about it as well when companies try to scale up too quickly and suddenly their cost of acquisition starts skyrocketing, and You look at companies like WeWork where they just had to pump billions and billions and billions because it was scalable at a certain time. They went too quickly. The cost of acquisition was at more than what the lifetime value of the customer was, and it just all fell apart really.
Yeah, well, they almost, it's like they scaled in the wrong way, wasn't it? Instead of having way too much demand and no product to actually satisfy that demand, they got a huge amount of product available and then wasn't able to fill the spaces.
Yeah, and the problem was, I worked in WeWork building, and I was at a company for just shy of 2 years, and we bounced around inside this WeWork building to various size offices every 6 months, and that's when one of their key selling points was short-term contracts. And as we moved around the business, like one time we were in one place in 6 months, our neighbours ended up 3 different businesses cycles through it in 6 months because there's no lifetime value. I mean, you look at a lot of the other bigger players who in the office space market, they usually lock you in for 2-3 year leases, and then it's like a guaranteed source of income. They were very much on the short-term startup scale-ups who are more likely to fail.
Yeah, they're relying on. Well, that's why that culture of, loads of events, free beer, free drinks and things. They're using that as incentives to bring in those small companies and make sure that even if these companies are churning, new ones are coming through the door. But that's
the problem that comes with the volume. Is you're going to reach a ceiling at some point, and you can't. The people who've already cycled through, you can't pull back in.
Yeah, and they're reasonably expensive as well. So I imagine a lot of bigger companies who would happily commit to a 1 or 2 year lease probably looked at the price and thought it's too much. If we're going to commit to a large office, it's really expensive. I remember we went to one called Rocket Space, which is very, very similar. They did free beers on a Friday as well. And a couple of other little perks, and the offices were quite similar as well. But I can't remember what the contract term was, but it was at least 6 months, if not 12. I think it might have been 12 with a 6-month discount or something like that. So they gave all those benefits that WeWork had, but tied us into probably a year-long contract.
Yeah, and that's also the other problem. I mean, we're quite lucky in our space is that the product we offer, you can't just jump into the market. Like the technology behind it, the production and everything is it's nigh on impossible for someone really to enter the market without a significant upfront expenditure. While with something like WeWork, where there's not really an IP behind it. They have a building, they make it a bit funky. And there's now tons of those, like Space, and there's a few others as well. But there's lots of those sort of shared office space companies coming out now. Well, there was. I don't know how well they're doing since the pandemic, but I noticed it more and more. It's because there's a low barrier to entry. You just need to have enough capital to buy some office space and partition it up, and then start bringing people in.
We're also seeing more and more that the actual employees care less and less about those perks that companies like WeWork provide. When you see job specs, well, I mean, I'm not applying for jobs, but I see posts on LinkedIn about it. People saying they don't really care about the free beer or the free snacks anymore. Probably more so, I guess, because of the pandemic. People want that work-life balance. They want to be able to work flexibly. They want to work remotely if they can. Those are the important perks and benefits that people want now, not just some beer at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So, it'd be interesting to see what happens with WeWork over the next year or so.
And that's all comes, nice about it. That's how they're with it optimizing their conversion rate is looking at that sort of stuff. What those sort of perks at the start was what was getting people converting. It was exciting to work in WeWork because you had the free beer and they put on the lunch, the breakfasts on a Monday, and they did this and that got business to convert. But as you said, now people are like, actually, I'd rather spend more time at home. I'd rather get in a little bit earlier and leave a bit later to pick my kids up. And unless WeWork can pivot towards that somehow, the conversion rate is going to tank because less and less businesses are going to care about the fluffy stuff on the side.
Yeah, and also potentially you're going to have smaller offices. I know companies who have given up offices, moved to spaces kind of like WeWork, but instead of hiring out an office for 200 people, they're hiring out hot desks for 50.
Yeah.
And then just saying, look, if you come in once or twice a week, but do it as teams. So, let's have marketing in on these days, or DevOps or something on these days, and just make use of the space. But the majority of the time, people are going to be at home. So even renting out that space is going to be more difficult because companies no longer feel the need to have a desk per person anymore.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think that scales across a lot of businesses. For us, it's definitely worked in a way quite nicely. People are spending more time at home. So the perk of, we have a lot of businesses that have our product in their offices, numerous of the products. Then people drink a lot of water at work, meeting around the water coolers, a sort of thing. And also does, the hot drinks. And we've seen a lot of people recently when sort of polling, like, what do you hear? There was one at my work. And that, so you defer from that there was one at their work. Now they're spending more time working from home. They want that same service, and we do it for home as well, which is a little string that we haven't really pulled out as much as I'd like to. Is that real? You got your go back to school campaigns, and sort of do the work from home, like, not the back to work, but the opposite is, okay, you're working at home for more. You want to be hydrated, because hydrated people work better. Here's a system for it, sort of thing. And I feel we're still, I think, with the whole panic, everything going, everything's still a bit up in the air, a bit juggled. Even though we seem to be fully out of it, there's always that feeling you never know what's around the corner. And so it's quite a difficult one, just because a lot of people don't know if their business is going to start mandating everyone to be back. And if that's the case, people can start looking possibly from work where it is more flexible. And then if you're looking for work, you're less likely to make bigger purchases, because you don't know how long you might need to sit on your savings or how long your next paycheck needs to last. So there's a lot of variables. They're coming back to that data thing. A lot of variables got to look at. So yeah, it's quite an interesting one. I'd love if there was more data around, you said about job specs, if someone did a whole breakdown of job specs, and from 6 months ago to now, how many job specs have flexible working or work from home 2-3 days a week in them compared to before? Because I'd love to see that data to be like, okay, it's increased 200%. So there's going to be a lot more work from home. So actually drilling a work from home campaign, doing work from home landing pages, having emails around it is something to really focus on. If it's actually a lot of, if it's looking like the same as pre-pandemic, where most businesses are saying, yeah, it's back to the office as soon as you can, then people aren't going to really want to get something for home that they're only going to use in the evening, possible weekends. There's a lot to balance out there.
I bet that data's there. Someone will have done a study on it.
Yeah, got to hit up the recruiters.
Yeah. So someone will have done a study by now to look into that, to see how many companies, or probably how many companies who used to not provide flexible working are now adding flexible working to their job specs.
Yeah. That's probably something I should get that at Google afterwards. See if there is that out there. Yeah.
Cool. So just one more thing I want to touch on the CRO side of things. Obviously, you guys come under the Virgin brand, which is pretty massive worldwide brand. How important, or what sort of impact do you think just having that Virgin brand has given the business? Sort of a boost?
It's huge. Yeah. Everyone. I'd be surprised if there are very few people in this country who haven't heard of Virgin in one guise or another. And it is huge because it gives you that straight away brand awareness, beyond just us being Virgin Pure. So people sort of are aware that Virgin do a system to do with water. So we can pick up a lot of things around that, people searching around that. They may not know the name Virgin Pure, but they know that Virgin do a water system. And we see a lot of that leaking into search terms. And then we got also sort of the benefits of the wider brand stuff. So a great example is the recent Richard going into space. There was huge brand activation around that for every single brand. Sort of huge campaigns in train stations. They had the big billboards running a specific campaign. All the brands, we were sort of getting together and having a brainstorming. So the master sort of group company had a campaign that they fed down to all of us that we're pushing out via our socials. So there's a lot of synergy. There's a lot of possible synergy between the Virgin brands and a lot of possible bleed between them. And it is great. It does have its negatives as well. As with any big brand, you have your detractors, but I think they're few and far between compared to the people who are actually quite big advocates of the Virgin brand.
Yeah, I mean, if it had a noticeable downside, they wouldn't launch so many businesses under the Virgin brand. I mean, I used to work with Virgin Games, and I helped launch Virgin Bet a bit later. So, they're obviously pretty confident that there's far more upside to the brand. I suppose for you guys, actually, you mentioned that referral numbers earlier. That's probably quite impacted by the Virgin brand.
Yeah, massively. I mean, you can imagine sort of if people are having a conversation, they've got machine, and we do find that people love the system when they have it in. It's not just me saying it, but I mean, when we do our services, people come to us and they're leaving reviews about how I say life-changing. It's probably a bit OTT, but I mean, there are people who turn around and said they were buying bottled water for families of 4 and 5, and they were spending thousands a year on bottled water and chucking away, upwards of 10 plastic bottles a day, sort of thing, because the tap water in their area was that grim. And they're like, the system's completely changed how their family operates. Everyone, they don't have the plastic waste, they don't have anywhere near the cost. And we do obviously like face-to-face customer groups and stuff like that. And you do hear some of the stories that I've done, sort of like looking back on it. It massively surprised me going into the business. I thought, I like the water in my area, to be honest, is pretty grim. And I had the jug water filter before, but to be honest, after about the first 2 months, I just got fed up of having to change the filter, having to fill it and then stick it in the fridge during the hot months, and waiting quite a while for it to cool down to the temperature that actually felt refreshing. And I got one of the systems installed, and honestly, the amount of water I drink now compared to before I joined, it's a massive increase. Yeah,
absolutely. Do you guys do like a comparison at all on the website? So do you compare your product versus the jugs?
Yeah. One of the many hundreds of landing pages I worked on when I first joined is sort of side by side product comparison between us filter jugs and the tap filter, sort of looking at the differences between them. And it's quite surprising. Obviously, the system is more expensive than a filter jug. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and lie, but then it's the convenience benefit. As I said, if you've got a family of 4, filling a filter jug and then cooling, that filter jug will be gone in the first round of drinks.
Yeah.
And then you've got to refill it, stick it back in the fridge, wait for it to cool. And then, if you've got, again, family of 4, which, we base a lot of stuff on family 4 because it's still, the average sort of size and quite big in our customer space. You're changing the filter pretty regularly, and that can stack up, and the plastic waste off of the changing the filters. And then, as if you leave your jug around, it builds up. You've got to clean it as well. With our system, with a UV lamp in ours, we kill the bacteria in the water, before you press the button, sort of thing. So, no matter how long that water's been sitting in the tank, you can go away for a month on holiday, come back, when you press the button, the water that's coming out of it is going to be filtered and purified. And, you probably couldn't leave a filter jug for a month in your fridge and then drink the water. I wouldn't. I mean, I'm not no scientist, but I just have. Personally, you just don't know. So yeah, it's it's pretty big for us, the friend referral side of things, and then that's the thing. There's so many benefits from it. People start talking about it, and they start, saying, I've got this virgin. That's the thing, and that's where it comes back to going about the virgin brand. They'll say, I've got this virgin. They might remember virgin, but they're like, oh, I've got this virgin water system at home. They might not remember the pure.
Yeah.
But as long as they know the virgin bit, they're going to find us.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, like we said, just having that virgin brand at the start means that people are probably just more likely to even just take a look, right? Even if they're not really convinced about buying it for themselves or whatever, just the fact that it's a virgin brand means they go, oh, do you know what? I'll Google it anyway and just have a look.
Yeah. And I think it helps with the ads. If it's a recognized, if you're scrolling through your Facebook and Instagram feeds and, the ads at every 3 or 4 posts, if you don't recognize the brand, it doesn't clock in your mind. You suddenly see Virgin and it might clock a bit quick in your mind. You've already got that subconscious awareness of the brand. And for some people, it definitely causes them to stop, especially those who have positive experiences with the other Virgin companies. If they've had good experience with Virgin Media or Virgin Atlantic, or even around when there was all the press around Virgin Galactic, it's all subconsciously seeping into people's minds. And we definitely do see a benefit around it.
Yeah, cool. Just moving on a little bit then. It kind of sounds like you've made a lot of changes, you've made a lot of improvements, but what's been one of the biggest challenges recently?
I mean, being a purely digital D2C brand means we are at the mercy of technology. A glitch in Google, such as the recent shopping ad delivery screw up they had, a server outage there, spike in Facebook CPMs here, daily sales can get massively impacted by that, or the cost of acquisition can massively spike. We're not overly reliant on one channel kind of messing up can still hit hard, especially with something like Facebook, which not only drives direct conversion, but generates a lot of the top of the funnel brand awareness and first engagements for us. So, I mean, that's the challenges, especially with websites as well. You want to layer as much technology in the background to see what people are doing on your sites, your tag managers, your analytics, your CRO programs, and every bit of script and everything that's firing off slows your site down a bit. So it's sort of balancing out all of that stuff together while also making sure your site is optimized for Google, which is still one of the biggest channels for us. And if Google starts seeing your websites not being as optimized for mobile, it's slow or something like that, you get massively penalized and can start really dropping down, especially with paid. If your landing page quality score starts dipping, your CPCs will start spiking. So there's so much around that, and that's the biggest challenge, is balancing everything out so that making one change doesn't negatively impact something else and cause a spike somewhere else.
Yeah, makes sense, really. Do you do any sort of offline activations? I can see it working well. Where it's always Sky in shopping malls.
Yeah, we do actually. That you mentioned it, we have Westfield, so the Westfield shopping centres. Okay. We have a load of machines plumbed in there, so they're we haven't got people standing around trying to flog them. It's more they're there. There's a nice little sign saying free. Fill up your water bottle here.
Oh, okay. So instead of a sales opportunity, you're literally just providing the water fountains for like Westfield.
Yeah. So they get to test the product out instead of us saying, "Look, here's how amazing it is." If you're in the Westfield shopping centre, you can press the button, you can get your chilled water, and it has impact. We do see we do poll quite a lot on how people found us. Why did they buy us, or where did they first see us before they bought us? And Westfield does crop up. I mean, it's not. It's not it's not in the top 4 or 5 channels, but it's still there as a first touch point. And it's also good. You get some bits of organic social, people snapping themselves, refilling it. We had Holly Branson was in Westfield not that long ago, snapping herself, filling it off, and that she's got quite a big following, and that gets quite a lot of organic reach. Aside from that, we are purely generally focused, and that's more of a legacy thing. We are purely focused on digital. I think, again, when you've got to look at where your money's going, out of home can be a bit of what impact did it have. It can be a lot harder to track. You can track it in some ways, but we don't do, say, discount code. So we can't plaster posters everywhere with a discount coupon and then track how many times the coupon's used. We could do more. Well, I mean, we might look to do more regional stuff and just say, okay, if we ran an ad in Newcastle, plastered ourselves around Newcastle, look at in GA, did we have a spike in visits from Newcastle around the time that the ads were running? But at the moment, we're looking at our CRO on their website and our digital channels and trying to improve that. Again, I feel you've got to earn the right to do those more brand focused pieces by getting the conversion right. Because say we did go out and did huge campaigns, TV and all this, and driving tons of people to the website, and then our CRO isn't on point, we haven't got the right landing pages, our website isn't operating, start driving all these people who have negative experiences, who then don't buy and then pass on bad word of mouth. I feel you've got to get everything right and earn the right to do the bigger pieces.
I think some of them can be tougher, obviously like radio in particular, and probably TV as well, where, you have to be quite quick and short with the URL, because that advert's going to end. They're going to move on to the next thing. It's quite a big ask to get someone to pause the TV, rewind it to the advert to see what that URL was. But I've got a client.
Yeah, and I'd be surprised if anyone did.
Yeah. I've got a client who's doing quite direct response newspaper ads. And it's generally, the website URL / the newspaper name.
Yeah.
And that's their attribution for it. And they also have a specific phone number, actually, for those adverts. And that's working really, really well for them. And they're able to pretty accurately track back the performance to that advertisement.
Yeah, I think you see it very much the same with the channels. They usually can have their brand .tv or .com/TV as their brand. I mean, I feel if you do .tv, you kind of force people to then go via that channel. Because if you do they might just do virginpure.com, enter, and forget the /TV. But if they're like virginpure.tv and they think that's a genuine web address, then you're more likely to catch them. But yeah, I think there are a lot of ways around it. And actually the newspaper one is quite an interesting one, that. But yeah, you always hear about the death of more traditional media channels like TV and stuff like that. So I think it's quite a difficult one, because I said you do want to get your digital side right, because that's where everyone is these days. And I think you can see it. I mean, you see it personally where I said I only joined about 6 months ago. So when I was job hunting, every other job in marketing seemed to be digitally focused for businesses that they're like, literally the number of times I read this will be our first hire for someone purely to look after the digital space. I read that so many times, it's just was unbelievable compared to any other job hunt I've had in the last 12, 13 years.
Yeah, I mean, I've worked in startups before, so that it's always been kind of, this would be one of our first hires in marketing. But to see this is one of our first digital specific hires, also does seem quite surprising.
It's so many. It's one of the fallouts of the pandemic. It's so many traditional businesses looked and saw people. Now everything's shifting online. We didn't have our people in the office, so call centers were a bit, logged up, or people who had concession stands in your shops and stuff like that. A friend of mine has a business, and they're more. Before the pandemic, they were wholesale, and so they sold into like cookware shops and stuff like that. And he said because of the pandemic, they really ramped up their online presence, and it just paid massive dividends because people couldn't go to their cookware shops to buy plates, cutlery, etc., etc. So they started looking online to just purchase, and his business took advantage of that. And I think a lot of traditional businesses are looking at that and going, okay, we need a digital presence. It's how you survive in this day and age.
Yeah, well, a lot, again, pandemic related, lots and lots of suppliers of restaurants turned to D2C and turned to e-commerce because they still had to clear their stock. And they're no longer selling all those ingredients and things to restaurants, so they've got to sell them to the public. And I think a lot of businesses did really, really well out of that. And I wonder if some of them will maybe not give up the restaurant side, the B2B side, but definitely keep focusing on that B2C side because they've seen that it works and they can support it.
And the margins will probably be significantly better because when you're selling wholesale, you're generally if you're selling on to someone who's then going to sell it on again, Now everyone's got margins. If you're selling
Yeah.
direct, just you don't need to worry too much about margins.
You skipping the middleman, but putting the price up there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you're selling something for a £5 and then the company you're saying no one sells it for a tenner, and it costs you £2 to make, you're making £3. If you sell it direct, you sell it for a tenner, you're making £8.
Yeah, exactly.
£7. So I think there's where a lot of businesses, and even in the service industries now that everyone's so more used to doing Zoom and teleconference and stuff like that, where you might have gone into it, inside to a business, you walked into an estate agent or a lawyer's or something like that. I've noticed a lot of those sort of businesses really focusing on having more of providing a service online that could have traditionally been a face-to-face thing.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. So just before we finish then, is there anyone in the D2C marketing space that you'd like to have lunch with?
I mean, there's a guy called Ben Francis. He is the guy who set up Gymshark, and he's still there as a CEO. I mean, he's not purely marketing, but I mean, it's a guy who entered a pretty competitive market and turned a business that he literally started in his parents' garage to a global brand that's worth over £1 billion, and is literally one of the biggest names when it comes to sort of sports or gym clothing. And one of the big reasons for that was he got on the influencer bandwagon like really before it became it's massively oversaturated. Now you really can't get your money's worth that much out of it.
It's been a thing for 7 years, I'd say.
Yeah.
As actual like influencer marketing, as opposed to just advertising before. But yeah, they absolutely nailed it, didn't they?
Oh yeah, like
they just got it right.
Oh, he was all over it. I was sort of, it was an interesting story because his brand was first pushed out there as like not unisex, but they did men and women's clothing. But I mean, it's now pretty much, I can't remember, I go to the gym quite a lot and I travel for competitions and stuff, and I never see guys wearing Gymshark, but everywhere you go, all the women are wearing Gymshark clothes. It's like a whole thing. So it's very interesting where he also quickly pivoted. He saw, he had all the clothes. He saw actually, the people who love my clothes more and are wearing them more are the women. So he massively pivoted his business towards that. And I think that's what it'd be really good to just like pick his brain. And how did you look at that? How did you understand that was the way to go? Why did you not just be like try and double down on increasing your share within men and sort of keep it more of an even keel than sort of really going quite hard towards where you saw the opportunity, and just like really understanding that? Because I said they're generally purely a D2C business as well, and they've then moved into other markets. So sort of understanding how they decided to diversify, what products because there's so many other products in the gym market. What products did they decide to do? Why did they decide to do it? It's I can imagine the conversation with him would be massively enlightening.
Yeah, definitely. It'd be actually really interesting to see whether in other countries they've done the opposite and they've targeted men more, or whether there is a more even balance. Basically, if it differs per country, or whether it's the same trend everywhere.
Yeah, no, I think that's always quite an interesting thing. Is at Virgin Pure, we're very much we're not UK centric. We're sort of Great Britain centric. So we don't really have any sort of. I don't really have to try and understand entering into like the German market, the French market, or the US market. We're very much focused just here. But I've worked at businesses where there is a consideration, and it's crazy that when it comes to like ad copy, creatives, even the style and imagery on landing pages and stuff like that, you kind of got to have pretty much build different looking websites depending on where in the world you're targeting. You can't, to be really successful, you can't just be one size fits all and just drive everyone to the .co.uk style .com and have everyone have the same images and the same copy and stuff. It varies massively.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got to localize it.
Yeah, massively. I think the hyper personalization, so localizing it even within country, is something that I'd really love to start testing, especially over here, because we did a piece of content recently looking at where in the UK was like the hardest water, because you find the hard water areas are generally better performing areas for us. So start really personalize the website so we know from a person's IP address they're in this part of the country. So really tailoring the content on the website and the messaging depending on where they are. Because there's certain areas in the country where there's more chlorine in the water and, all that sort of stuff, and really personalizing around that. I think that's like the pinnacle in my mind when it comes to sort of CRO and personalization, is like that real intricate personalization, but it's so difficult to pull off.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. Like that personalization is so important. Even, I mean, it's probably more at a country level, but knowing what payment methods are popular, or I mean, some of it is almost like regulatory. And actually, I've got one example. What was it? Postcodes, right? So we have from what I understand, we have quite a unique postcode system here in the UK, where our postcodes will be almost a building in certain areas. So central London, a postcode is quite often a building. Whereas where I live now, the postcode is my side of the road.
Yeah.
Right. But it still covers quite a few houses along there. But in other countries, the postcode's the area. Like quite a few streets, a few blocks. Right. So when one of the companies I was at, they were rebuilding the platform. And when they sent the test versions over to us to have a look at, they used Google Maps to API for their address finder, which doesn't work in the UK because it didn't use postcode, I think. Which bit was it lacking? Basically, you couldn't actually get your exact address auto-filled in with this thing. And they didn't.
Oh, wow.
And they didn't build in initially the function to just type your address in manually. So that ended up with loads of conversations trying to explain to these tech teams based out in France and Spain, I think, that our postcode system works differently. And the way they built it meant that UK users couldn't actually sign up and create an account if we'd gone live with this thing.
Yeah, I mean, that shows sort of the beauty of being able to test this stuff as well. You hear about sort of before where people rush stuff out and then really test it, and then it doesn't work. But yeah, that localization and the fact that I think in the States it's very much the same, where their postcode system is a much broader area. I remember reading somewhere, I think it's in New York, only a handful of buildings have their own zip code. Otherwise, it covers quite a broad area. And, because they're quite build high mentality there. A zip code can cover tens of thousands of people and businesses and addresses and stuff. So you're narrowing it down with that. Well, here, you said the postcode can cover, a handful of people, probably not more than 100 or so people, I'd say in general, especially if you're outside of the cities.
Yeah. I mean, you could get away probably with, if you sent a letter to me with just my house number and my postcode, it would get to me.
Yeah, exactly.
No other information. You probably don't need the street, don't need the actual town, just the house number and the postcode, and that would get to me.
Yeah, because the postcodes are down pretty much to a street level over here.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's pretty interesting.
It's great.
Yeah, it makes life a lot easier.
Yeah, cool. So just a final question before we finish is I think we've just hit an hour, I think we're coming up to. What are a couple of marketing tools that you use every day?
So I start with the Google Suite is a big one. So you got like GSC, GA360, GA4, Google Optimize, Google Web Dev, Google Ads, to name but a few. I mean, Google, it's a huge amount. And that comes back to sort of what I first started talking about, data. They just give you so much data and so much opportunity to really learn about how things are going, how people are trying to find you, what they're doing when they do find you, being able to customize it based on what they've done previously. Then I use a system called Force24, which is our email marketing system, because you need a good email marketing system that you can send personalized campaigns from, because any business will start collecting the data of people who didn't purchase, and you need to be able to start converting those people. And then finally is a system called Lucky Orange, which is a CRO suite, and it's probably the one thing, if I ever speak to anyone in marketing, I'm like, get this system. It will set you back around $20 to $50 a month, and it's got, your heat map, your scroll maps, your click maps, all that data that can help you see how people are actually interacting with your website in a granular detail, so you can really hone in and improve your user journey. You can run polls through it, understand why people decided not to buy, why did they buy, what more information could you have given them, and then it's got live chat built in, so you can trigger it. So you can literally watch people on the website. You can see someone on a page, they're clicking, they're trying to find more information. You literally pop a live chat up and go, "Hi, can I help you?" So for any size of business, from the smallest to the biggest, I think it's something that you need to really supercharge your CRO.
Yeah, I've used Hotjar quite a lot, which is really similar. But also I've used, one of my clients uses Microsoft Clarity, which I've used a little bit, and it's looking really good, and it's free.
I like their rage click mechanic. That's brilliant.
Rage clicks and dead clicks, although the dead click one I'm finding less useful because it tends to just be random clicks on the page. It's not, I haven't seen many people attempting to click something, expecting it to click, and it's not clicking. It's generally like, it's literally a random click in the middle of the page somewhere. So someone's probably just accidentally clicked.
Yeah, I've also found I haven't used Code for War, when it first had that, it sort of picks, because obviously when you touch the screen to scroll, it was kind of like on a mobile device, it's sort of thinking that was a click, and you kind of start looking at it going, oh, it's just someone scrolling. So it was, but I like Clarity. I think it's still very much in the early stages though, compared to the other pieces of software.
Yeah, fair enough.
But I think they're going to really start rolling that. I mean, they've been doing huge things to the Bing advertising platform. They've really ramped that up to the point where it's actually, it's going to be more than just a nice to have. It's going to be starting to be a bit more essential.
Okay. Yeah, I've not touched anything with Bing for years now. But I think it's still quite popular out in the US, isn't it? More in the US than here. Yeah,
if you're B2B, even in the UK, if you're B2B, you have to be on it, because so many businesses with their policies with like work machines and stuff like that, they don't let you download stuff like Chrome. You have to use what comes built in, which is usually IE or Edge now. Yeah. And so, a lot of, especially in the financial industries where you pretty much can't customize your work machine. So B2B, I think B2C, it's still all right, but it's for the older market, I found. Like if you look at the data on it, it's generally people who don't know how to download Chrome or don't trust downloading Chrome, so they just use what comes built in.
Yeah, it makes sense. Cool. Awesome. Cool. This has been really fascinating stuff. Loved learning about Virgin Pure. If anyone wanted to kind of reach out and ask you some questions or anything, what's the best way of getting in touch?
Yeah, so easily findable on LinkedIn, Christopher Hann. Just look for the Christopher Hann that works for Virgin Pure. Otherwise, the other Christopher Hanns will get a bit confused. Or you can, if anyone really wants to, they can email me at chris.hann@virginpure.com. More than happy to sort of have any conversations with anyone about anything to do with marketing.
Cool. Awesome. That's great. All right. Thanks, Chris.
Excellent. Thank you very much for your time.
So, data has been the most important factor in growth for Virgin Pure, not just ensuring the accuracy of data from Google, Facebook, and analytics, etc., but also being able to overlay external data to understand what has caused changes in performance, whether good or bad, and identify opportunities that are coming up. As Chris mentioned, knowing when paydays are, knowing how the weather will impact performance, and knowing when certain seasons are in progress, such as construction, can all have significant impacts on your advertising. But it's not just knowing when these are going to happen. It's also important to tailor the messaging to them to really get the best possible performance. If you'd like to speak to Chris more about how they use data, reach out to him on LinkedIn. Any other podcast questions, feedback, or guest requests, please send them over to will@customerswhoclick.com or tweet me at Will Lawrenson. Next up, I've got Jason Wong joining me. He's going to talk about how he's very quickly grown Dough Lashes into a 7-figure business by focusing on the customer experience. But until then, keep those customers clicking.